Good morning, boys and girls. Today, by way of an introductory book, we have something a little bit different. This book was published in 1946, and it had a huge impact on the West. I have not read this book in more than 40 years, probably more than 45 years. And I remember it really impressed me. This is not a path that I went down particularly, but I strongly recommend it for anybody who's interested in yoga or in Hinduism, in the spoken generically. You know, Hinduism is made up of many, many different kinds of probably even more than Christianity, many, many different belief systems and spiritual leaders and factions, and occasionally in the West, especially cults. But this book really stands out. It had a major impact on a lot of people. And without further ado, it's Autobiography of a Yogi. Have you heard of this book?
I have. I remember Steve Jobs talking about it.
Yeah. People like Steve Jobs would read it, things like that. So just so it was written in 1946, but let me just read some of the praise. And this is certainly true. There has been nothing before written in English or any other European language like this presentation of yoga. A yoga journal. Okay, fabulous stories from his life keep the reader inspired, informed, and thoroughly entertained from beginning to end. And then we have Ravi Shankar, the great sitar player with the Beatles. The moment I started reading this book, it did something to me. I have read many books on yoga by yogis, but I was never impressed as with this book. And then closer to home, we have Andrew Weil, who actually went to Harvard. I knew him there a bit. This book inspired me to change my diet, meditate, and pay attention to my spiritual well-being. Autobiography of a Yogi is a modern classic that also happens to be a terrific read. One of my very favorite books. And so there are definite caveats to go along with this book. I know that much. And his methodology is certainly not mainstream from my point of view, but nonetheless, as a source of inspiration and a source of entertainment, frankly, I don't think you're going to do better than this book. So I'm not really recommending it, but I'm saying if you want a good read and you want a totally different facet on this spiritual quest, or this quest for truth, you could do much worse than Autobiography of a Yogi. I think what happened was some kind of cult or something, or maybe not a cult, but some faction splintered off around him or his teachers or something. I'm not sure what exactly went wrong. And I remember him looking for a blue pearl, and that was the Summa, that was what we really wanted, was to visualize this blue pearl, which for us these days seems a little bit parochial. But nevertheless, it's a great book for other purposes. And so here it is, Autobiography of a Yogi. For you Gen Zs and millennials out there, you may not have heard of this. Everyone else, I think, has heard of it. Okay, good. Here we go. What have you learned?
Few things, two things in particular. One, it is normal to have thoughts about food when you are dieting. And I have put this up specifically, but it can be generalized to anything. Anything that's animalistic in nature, or how should I say, that is required by an animal for survival. So in this case, it's food, and in other cases, it could be something else.
Just a little asterisk there. If you're fasting, it's not unusual for those thoughts to go away after about the third or fourth day, and you don't even think about food particularly. But that's because your body has switched over into a ketosis. And it's not taking food from the outside, it's digesting your fat. But But go ahead. I'm sorry. I just wanted to throw that little caveat in.
Yeah, and it is it is simple conditioning. Like I don't know, I don't smoke, but I have heard smokers who say that after they quit cold turkey, of course there is some component of withdrawal as well, but there is a strong requirement to like smoke again. There are a lot of thoughts around it.
Okay, let's
Sometimes
go ahead.
I feel like it's withdrawal plus the conditioning. And I feel like it's totally normal to have these thoughts. It's just that I just need to acknowledge it and move on. If I were to indulge in it, then I'm nothing more than an animal who does indulge on their thoughts, not thoughts, impulses. I may come off wrong. Yeah.
Okay, well, may I add a couple of just qualifications to that?
Yeah.
Conditioning, traditionally conditioning refers to something that's learned, okay? And so we could talk about food and nicotine different. I mean, those are different things. So the desire for food is not learned, it's innate. So I wouldn't say that that's conditioned. Now, you may be conditioned to certain foodstuffs, you know, fancy desserts or sugary treats or fried foods or something like that. But it's important to realize when we speak of condition, we're talking about things that you've learned one way or the other. Okay, so that's important because conditioning only applies to certain things. With regard to nicotine is an acetylcholinesterase inhibitor, I think. And what happens is the cells become habituated to that. They become addicted to it. And once they're addicted to that, withdrawal from that particular neurochemical, and that's what it is, produces measurable symptoms, I believe, even at the level of tissues and cells, although I don't know if anybody's actually done it. Because it's pretty obvious. The nicotinic receptors, which every cell has for acetylcholine. So again, it is conditioning because you learned how to smoke if you were a smoker. And then withdrawal is a combination of both conditioned and biological responses, which have also been conditioned, but your body has those receptors there. So I think we need to the problem is that people are using words like addiction very, very loosely these days. And I'm not saying it's the only way to cut it up. You can cut it up any way you want. But the way we cut it up back in the day was if there was a withdrawal syndrome, if there was a demonstrable physiological reaction, which we see with opiates, we see with alcohol, we see with nicotine to some extent, then we call it addiction. Otherwise, it's not particularly addiction. I mean, if you're scrolling all day, you could call it addiction, but that's kind of a very loose use of the word. So avoidant behaviors are not necessarily what we'd call addictions. We call them more avoidant behaviors or learned behaviors. Or on the other hand, the variable reward schedule, we've talked about that, right? Where sometimes you get a reward, sometimes you don't. And most of the time you do, or some of the time you don't. And it's just like a slot machine. And that's how the algorithms are set up to hook you, right? So that variable schedule of reinforcement is a very powerful device which is being used wholesale on the human population. Okay, so good. But you've realized that you don't have to indulge in these thoughts, which is very, very important. And I think that's your message, that you don't have to revel or indulge in these thoughts. Go ahead.
Yeah, earlier I couldn't even differentiate between these things. I would just jump directly into it and not even think about it. But yeah.
Good. Well, that's progress. That's good.
But I still
To
have
be
one
master
problem.
of your mind, you must learn about your mind. You must study your mind. And that sounds like what you're doing. Good.
I had one problem with it though. Not necessarily problem with it specifically. It's like, how do you handle challenging or really strong, emotionally charged thoughts? For example,
You step back.
if you have,
All right, do you want to give an example?
yeah, for me, an example would be simple health anxiety. It's like I have some symptoms and my mind goes, we are going to die. Like it's so strong. And I
Yeah,
have to counter back that it's really low probability, but my mind says, but
it could be, there could be a real
this
problem.
time it could happen.
That could be a real problem, and you have my empathy on that. The way you do it is like with any thought. You take a step back, as far back as you can get, and then you just watch it. You don't fight it. You don't say, oh, this is bad. Oh, this is wrong. You just watch it very closely. It's like have you ever had an itch when you were meditating?
Yeah.
An itch on your leg?
Yes.
What you've probably learned is if you just observe it closely, it changes and then it goes away. And so these thoughts are like itches that I mean, it's a rough analogy, it's a crude analogy, forgive me. But if you just observe them closely, if you observe them carefully, and you sustain your attention on them from a distance, I mean, you're not going to go down there and scratch it. You've decided that. You're going to watch it. Then you can distance yourself from the whole cascade and all of the affect associated with it, and just get curious. Now look at this thought. It comes for no good reason. It's a familiar feeling, this fear, this dread I have that I might have some illness that's going to kill me. And let's just look at it. Let's study it, not judge it, study it. Again, you don't wash blood with blood. You don't fight fire with fire. And so you don't fight thought with more thoughts. So bring yourself to the present. The other thing good about it is it brings you immediately to the present, because that's where thoughts have to be, right? And so now that you're in the present, you can maybe take a breath and look at it. And watch what it does. Does it get bigger? Does it get smaller? Does it throb? Does it slack off? Does it crescendo? You know, how often does it repeat? Does it repeat? There's 1,000 dimensions that you can look at. And by so doing, you've removed yourself from the affective component, you know, the emotional component, and you've begun to study it so you learn more about your mind. And learning about your mind is the first step towards mastering your mind.
I had one small query regarding that. When you said I need to observe it or be curious about it, specifically when you said be curious about it, wouldn't being curious imply asking some pointing questions and thus leading to another train of thoughts? Or is it just...
Well, it could be either, but in either case, it's working for you. It's like when you're meditating and you get an itch on your thigh. You just put your attention on it and you just watch it, and it'll show you what you need to. I mean, that's okay. When the observer does too much, he screws up the experiment, right? So just watch quietly. If you get too bent out of shape about it, then you're going to screw the experiment up, just like with quantum mechanics. Okay, so be a dispassionate observer. Then now there's many other tricks after that, but those are more advanced, and we'll talk about those later.
Yes.
They aren't really that useful. Good. Sounds like progress. Good.
Yeah. Another thing that I learned was that I'm not immune of my own bias. Like I was
no kidding.
going through I was going through a Reddit post, and that post was about something inflammatory, and I simply started scrolling through inflammatory,
yeah,
something inflammatory. Oh yeah, sorry for I essentially started scrolling through comments and observed how people were angry about it or showing their moral superiority about how they are better, and which I agreed with them. However, there was one comment saying, whatever others are discussing is false, it is completely benign, and the reason others have not observed it is because they have not gone through the link, the actual log or document that was discussing that whole thing. Essentially, I just saw the headline and just reacted to it. I don't know. That was really bad. Like, it was like I had to close that whole Reddit down then, and I just realized, yeah.
Okay, well, this is an old man talking, but here's what the old man has to say. Be very, very careful with Reddit. The risk reward for Reddit is getting worse and worse and worse. They're trying to find their way, and I mean, a lot of this is based on what I've read about it, but I don't know that anything good has come from Reddit. But again, that's my bias, right? So I would stay away from that if possible. It's the Wild West out there, and worse. Now, so you read an inflammatory headline.
Yeah.
Clickbait.
Yes.
Was it a bot?
Yes. I don't know. Could be.
So you don't know. You don't even know if you're dealing with a human. And in Reddit, this is really the wild and woolly west. They're out there trying all kinds of different things, and I don't know who's in charge or whether they're trying to sell it or they're trying to merge it or trying to do something. But it's, from what I've read, it's worse than many of the alternatives. And there's little yield to be found there. I mean, that's not where anybody that I know of that's serious goes to share information or share discoveries. I mean, do you know of anybody serious on there?
No.
All right, well then,
Definitely.
don't waste your time. You know.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's.
No, but
and I've been at this. I've been for a while. I've been at this business for a while, and I can't say that anybody's come in and say, "Oh, I discovered something really useful, and I'm glad I went on Reddit." Now, of course, I'm generalizing, and I don't know. All right, I'm an old man. I have, so just be careful how you use your time.
yes.
Right, and clickbait on Reddit, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a bot.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
stopping them?
Yes.
All
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
So I answered your bias with my own bias. Okay.
Yeah. Then there are, I don't know whether this is a weird thing, but there are weird things that I kind of realize, or I don't know. Like, why is it called truth?
Why is it
For
called
me,
truth?
it's like, yeah, for me, it's like whatever is happening right now in the present is definitely true. And anything conjured by thoughts is false, given it doesn't contain the whole universe to justify its content. So that's what
That's an interesting thought.
I think
It's a complex thought, and people would have to be familiar with your reasoning. Why don't you explain it some more?
So what I meant by that is whatever is happening right now,
Correct.
whatever is there in the present time,
Mm-hmm.
it is there by virtue of it being present. So there's truth there, but there are thoughts about future or about past. Those contents are whose contents, like those thoughts are real, but its contents are false, or may not be real, or may not be taking into consideration the whole universe when that point in time comes into being.
So I think what you're implying, that in order for the present to be here, for this reality to be here, for this stick to be here, it requires the cooperation of the entire cosmos.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's very
It's
true. I mean, we can't get around that scientifically, in a way, right? So so I think that thought is a good one as far as it goes. But let me ask you a few questions, okay? Is a
yes.
rainbow real? Imagine you were seeing a rainbow, right? I look outside my window and I see a rainbow. Is it real?
Real in the sense that I can see it, I can have it in my senses, but it's still a label. Like you
Okay,
don't
so you're
need
saying
these
that
labels
it's
to.
real in your senses. Is it real outside your senses?
I don't know. I can never prove that.
Okay, so those are the kinds of things we need to look into next, right? If only the present is real, then to find truth, we have to understand whether there's any aspects of the present that are more real than others. And what do we mean by what we say
Okay.
real? We believe it, we see it, we you know, I mean, this is just this is a contemplation, right? And you know, in the paramitas, there's patience, generosity, effort, discipline, but then there's a big one called contemplation / meditation. So this is exactly what's meant by contemplation. So think about it: is a shadow real, and how is it real? Is a rainbow real? How is it real? Right?
Yes.
And then say, well, our senses describe something, but what is it that our senses are really describing? I mean, from a deeper point of view.
They are not describing anything. They are as it is coming into being.
Good, I like that.
There is. It's just there, and that's what reality is for me. Like it's there. I'm just aware of it. There is. I don't need to add any meaning to it or add labels to it. I had some questions,
Okay, that's
something
interesting.
similar to
Okay,
these
all right.
questions.
So just say we could say that it's there. I think that's fine. It's there. Whether or not it's real or not is another question, because we'd have to define what
I
we mean by
don't think
real.
I don't think like if by real you mean having some substance, that's not there. Like having a substance is just a thought on top of my senses.
Ah, very good. Very interesting. Yeah. So the fact that it may or may not have substance, but you're saying that it's real.
Yes.
Excellent. Good. So keep going from there. Very good. That's contemplation.
Yeah, I,
Keep going. Keep going. So now we get into questions of ontology, right?
yeah.
What is
Yeah.
ontologically true? Do you want to look up? You want to read people a definition of ontology just in case they aren't familiar with it?
Yeah. Let, okay. Uh,
Strawberry
Ontology
fields forever.
is a philosophical concept. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Uh, Ontology is a philosophical concept that refers to the study of the nature of reality, existence, and being. It is concerned with questions about what entities exist, what their properties are, and how they are related to one another.
Good. Read the first sentence again for folks.
Ontology is a philosophical concept that refers to the study of the nature of reality, existence, and being.
Good. Perfect. Now just do one sentence on epistemology.
Epistemology.
So ontology is the study of being, what is, what really is, what is real.
Epistemology is a branch of philosophy concerned with the study of knowledge, how it is acquired, what the limits of knowledge are, and how we can be certain about what we know.
Very good. So between epistemology and ontology, we've got things somewhat covered to a degree. Okay, good. Thank you for the sake of the. Thank you.
Yes.
I like the way this is headed. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then there were other weird things like whatever I'm aware of right now, like the sound, the things that I'm hearing, and the things that I'm feeling, their events may have originated at different time, yet they reach my eyes, my body at the same time, or not even at the body. The one that's aware of these things, they reach at the same time. Like, how should I say? Like, if you are seeing something nearby, like the light rays reach to you pretty fast. But suppose you are seeing a sun or a star, though those light rays are from the past.
Is that true? I know that's what I was taught, and I know that's what I believed all my life, but is it true?
Not from the perspective of the photon, because from the perspective
So
of
it's
photon,
a relative truth.
relativity.
It's a relative truth. Very good, by the way. From the perspective of the photon, there's no past or future, right? And so it's a relative truth. Whether or not that light takes, a million light years to get here, depends on where you look at it from, right? Excellent. Good. Yeah. So I have a feeling we're going to have to rewrite a lot of stuff as we begin to understand more about these photons things.
Yeah.
So just if you just contemplate, lately I've been contemplating just light. Where does light come from? I mean, I know what I think, but it's an interesting. Go ahead.
For me, it's just a way the universe dissipates energy. Like if an electron
Well,
moves
but
from
light and
higher
energy are the same thing,
state.
right? They're the same thing.
Yes.
Okay, so we just changed the word to energy instead of light. But where does that come from? I mean, energy, it's a little bit because we can't see it directly. It pushes the question back a ways. But where did light come from? The energy of light. Or where did whatever a photon is? Do you know what a photon is?
Yeah. That's
What is
actually a pretty interesting question. It's the unit of light, or it's the unit with which energies are sent from one place to another. It could simply also be.
So it's a unit. It's
I
not a
don't know.
reality. It's a unit, like an inch or a yard or a quantum. I'm talking about the reality,
Yes,
the ontology. I'm talking about the ontology of light. What is it really?
So there is no way to know what it is actually. We are limited by our senses, our systems that can detect these things. We can't know more than that.
Really? Ever?
One thing that I know. I
So
think
here we
this
are
is
in a
the-
universe of light and we can't know what light is?
no, I
I'm
think
just
this
playing
is
with you.
the-
I'm just playing with you. That's okay. Okay, good. So again, contemplation. This is good. But we don't want this to turn into a physics hour. So I mean, I like talking about it because it's the kind of stuff young men and women need to, think about. This marvelous universe that we're in. It's where there's light always. Without light, there's nothing, it seems.
This is the prime case of
And with light, there's everything.
nothing. I feel like this is the prime case of nothing generating something.
Well, that's easy to say. That's easy to say. That's like saying the
I have
Big
few
Bang. That's like
questions.
saying the Big Bang. That's just the Big Bang in other words. So the people that can help us understand this are not just modern epistemologists and ontologists and philosophers, but the ancients knew as much as we know now, frankly. So do any ancient philosophers come to mind?
Ancient philosophies.
Well, it's more than philosophy.
Buddhism.
There we go. Why don't we read folks a little bit of Avatamsaka just to change it up a bit.
Yes.
Flower Ornament Scripture, translated in the 20th century, illuminated translator Thomas Clary. Magnificent work, which will be very, very important and realized as such, in the coming centuries.
So I am at book 11, but
What page
I
are
have
we?
few questions in book 10.
Good.
I have
Let's
few
do
questions in book 10.
book 10, which page?
Let's start with starting itself, page 298.
All righty. Oh, you're past the 4 holy truths.
Yes. Honestly, this one's better, I would say. There is
Okay, all right. Let
someone
me just say
asking
something about
frank
this
questions.
world called endurance. For the longest time, I couldn't understand why they called this world endurance. Because it seemed like kind of the opposite of that. But now that I'm an old man, I understand why they call it endurance. Okay, keep going. Go ahead. 298.
Yeah. Yes. Book 10. An enlightening being asks for clarification.
Yes.
Then the enlightening being, Manjushri, asked the enlightening being, chief of the awakened, since the nature of mind is one, what is the reason for seeing the existence of various differences, such as going to good or bad tendencies, having complete or imperfect faculties, differences in birth, beauty and ugliness, pain and pleasure, suffering and happiness? Why is it that activity doesn't know mind, mind doesn't know activity, reception doesn't know consequence, consequence doesn't know reception, mind doesn't know reception, reception doesn't know mind, cause doesn't know condition, condition doesn't know cause, knowledge doesn't know object, object doesn't know knowledge? Chief of the awakened answered in verse, saying, Benevolent one, you ask the meaning of this to awaken all the ignorant. I will answer according to the essence. Listen clearly, benevolent one. Phenomena have no function and have no individual nature. Therefore, all of them do not know one another. Like the waters in a river, their rushing flow races past, each unaware of the others. So it is with all things. It's also like a mass of fire, blazing flames shoot up at once, each not knowing the other. Phenomena are also thus. Also like a continuous wind, fanning and drumming whatever it hits, each unaware of the other. So also are all things. Also like the various levels of earth, each based on another, yet unaware of the others. Thus are all phenomena. Eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, intellect, the faculties of sense. By these one always revolves. Yet there is no one, nothing that revolves. The nature of things is fundamentally birthless, yet they appear to have birth. Herein there is no revealer, and nothing that's revealed. Eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, intellect, the faculties of sense, all are void and essenceless. The deluded mind conceives them to exist. Seen as they truly are, all are without inherent nature. The eye of reality is not conceptual. This seeing is not false. Real or unreal, false or not false, mundane or transmundane. There's nothing but descriptions.
Wow. I can see what you mean. It's beautiful and difficult. So what's the question? This is really worth contemplating. This is gorgeous.
I think I
all of a sudden
I had one question here.
Go ahead. But just let me say a few things. So the title of this book is An Enlightening Being Asks for Clarification. For you, those that are joining us, an enlightening being is the translation of the word bodhisattva. So these are bodhisattvas asking for clarification of some very, very difficult questions. Go ahead.
I had this question at the third para in the page 289, the third verse. I think it's like the waters in a river, their rushing flow races past, each unaware of the others. So it is with all things. I think next few verses also talk something like this. Like, does this mean everything work independently? So why?
What do you mean works independently?
Like it's said in this verse, right?
Okay,
like the waters in a river.
So in the progression, I mean, this is going to be crude, so forgive me for that. But the progression of understanding of emptiness goes from first understanding that things are not as they appear. 1. 2 is then understanding interdependent origination, right? Then 3, we could say, is understanding the illusory nature of all things. And then 4, you could say, is the lack of differentiation and differentiation simultaneously by the human mind, right? And then 5th comes understanding of the true inherent emptiness of even that, right? And then you get to a statement like everything is just description. So, I mean, that's the best I could do right now off the cuff, but here now we're going much deeper into the realm of reality, to what's ontologically real. Now ask your question again.
My question is, there are a lot of verses that say, for example, also like a continuous wind, fanning and drumming whatever it hits, each unaware of the other.
Correct.
So also are all
So
things.
let's take a leaves on trees. The wind blows. Are the leaves aware of each other?
No. But
okay, so there's several different ways we could describe it. Let's say they're on the same branch. You could say, yes, they're kind of aware of each other because they're connected to each other by the branch, and they could rub up against each other, or they could hit each other, or they could they're feeling the same wind, or they feel the shadow from the leaves moving on them. And you could say all of those things at one level of reality, relative reality. But then at another level, are those really leaves there? Are those leaves? Are they real? Like, is a rainbow real? And we'd have to have done quite a bit of contemplation then to understand the inherent emptiness at this level, that what we're looking at is just a description by the mind, right? Do you see what I'm saying? So if it's green, if it's shaped a certain way and it moves with the wind, we call that a leaf. But that's a description of a movement. And then it's like the Zen story where the two students are having an argument about a flag blowing in the wind. One of them says, "That's the wind moving." The other one says, "No, it's the flag moving." and they get in this big fight about it. It's the wind, it's the flag, it's the wind, it's the flag. So they go to the teacher, and the teacher says, it's your mind moving. Which of course it is. It's your mind moving. There's nothing out there. And then you look into the nature of mind and you can't find it. Right? So we're getting in pretty deep here. But go ahead, next question. Keep with the question so I don't get too far. What part is difficult? Which part is difficult?
Okay, I may need to think a bit more on this. I'll think a bit
yes,
more.
exactly. And that's what this book is for. And very, very good, because you're getting it at a time when you're trying to understand. And this part, see, there's many different parts of this sutra. There are parts of it that are just there to calm the mind. There's other parts of it to prepare the mind. There's other parts to enliven the mind or refresh the mind, and even to, sometimes it feels like stupefy the mind. But then there are parts that are deeply, deeply, deeply philosophical, in the traditional sense of philosophical. And the answers are equally deep. I mean, this is not for slouchers. And so for a young man like you, this is great stuff. So any other questions about it? Because what you need to do is keep going with the sutra as you're approaching it. And yeah, I can see what you mean, that this is interesting, because it's very different than the Four Noble Truths, though, right? You see? The Four Noble Truths is teaching you how to live. This is teaching you how to think. I mean, it's pointing you in the right direction of how to think about things. And the answers are very surprising, very surprising.
I had one small question regarding that. Like, sometimes if I don't understand few things,
good,
should I just move on, or should I keep thinking at it again and again?
You should, if it depends on what it is, but for something like this, you need to understand this. Eventually you will, but this is a fairly profound Mahayana, Tantrayana description of what the reality is, what our circumstance is.
I think I had next question on page 301.
All right, good. This is good stuff, very good stuff. An enlightening being asked for clarification. All right, go ahead. But can you see how you can't approach this right off the bat? You need the preparation before you can even understand what they're talking about. You see that? Good.
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
I think it's in the second part, in the third verse.
Okay, let me read some of this for folks. Then Manjushri asked Chief of the Precious, all sentient beings equally have four gross physical elements. With no self and nothing pertaining to self, how come there is the experience of pain and pleasure, beauty and ugliness, internal and external goodness, little sensation and much sensation? Why do some experience consequences in the present and some in the future? And all this while there is no good or bad in the realm of reality. Chief of Precious answered in verse, according to what deeds are done, do their resulting consequences come to be, yet the doer has no existence. This is the Buddha's teaching. Like a clear mirror, according to what comes before it, reflecting forms, each different, so is the nature of actions. And like a skillful magician standing at the crossroads, causing many forms to appear, so is the nature of actions. Like a mechanical robot able to utter various sounds, neither self nor not self, so is the nature of actions. I love it. Like the different species of bird, all emerging from eggs, yet their voice is not the same, so is the nature of actions. Just as in the womb, all organs are developed, their substance and features coming from nowhere, so is the nature of actions. Also, like beings in hell, the various painful things all come from nowhere, so is the nature of actions. Also, like the sovereign king with 7 supreme treasures, their provenance cannot be found, so is the nature of actions. As when the various worlds are burnt by a great conflagration, the fire comes from nowhere, so is the nature of actions. All right, so this is clearly a treatise on the nature of actions, right? And they're asking, well, you know, what is this deal? There's all sentient beings have 4 gross elements, with self and nothing pertaining to self. How come there's the experience of pain and pleasure, beauty and ugliness, internal and external goodness, little sensation and much sensation? Why do some experience consequences of the present and others in the future? All this while it's going like, what gives, man? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
How can this be true? How can both of these be true?
So
go ahead. What questions? What questions? So now we're getting to the level of Zen. All right.
What I understood was, we can have a situation that can lead to certain consequences. We can have that similar situation again in future, and that can lead to some other consequences.
True.
Like in this verse, and like different species of birds all emerging from eggs, yet their voice is not the same. So is the nature of actions.
Wait a minute, what's emerging?
Emerging from eggs, all emerging from eggs.
Okay, yeah. All right, so just out of fairness here, they didn't have embryology back then.
Yep.
All right, so you got to keep that in mind. But even if you have embryology, all you're doing is pushing it back, 9 months or 4 months or whatever long the gestation period is. But eventually you get to this place where, that what gives here, this, so just, I don't know, that's not critically important, but I just thought I'd throw that in there. So go ahead, what's the question?
For me, this whole part is like there are are there even consequences of an action? Like, if there are consequences of an action, then it assumes that there was some options to begin with. But that doesn't happen. Like, one actions happen, something happens, it leads to something else. It's like there is no control of things. Like, things move forward.
What's going to control things? Control. What is there to control things?
Nothing. The whole universe. Whole universe decides. Not even decides. It just happens.
And what's the real size of the universe?
I don't know. And does it even matter?
Well, it matters a bit to the human because it helps the human grok the situation. So this is what I have to say. You're exactly on the right track. You have to keep going. There's a limit to what a teacher can give you or even help you get. And here we're reaching that limit. This requires a profound understanding of several different elements that have already been covered in the Avatamsaka and will be covered again. And like I said, if you don't get the Sutra will get you. So it will teach you as it shows you, as it prepares you, all at the same time, right? All you need is a good attitude and a little bit of effort, discipline, patience, and so on and so forth. But the rewards could not be greater. I mean, it simply cannot be greater in terms of a human life, what to do with a human life. And so that's all. I mean, there's a limit to what I can do here. It's like Zen. So now, so let's go back to the flag and the teacher and the 2 students. Well, did the wind move? Did the flag move? Or did the mind move? Well, all 3 moved, right? Correct?
I think.
Or all 5. All 5. The 2 students have individual minds, let's say. So the wind, the flag, and the mind move simultaneously, let's say. But then what is the flag, really? And what is the wind, really?
A label.
Right, and what is the wind, really? A description.
Yes.
And what is the mind really?
Description.
Exactly. Now, to get this, to soak this kind of level of understanding into your marrow, into your bones, to enliven your heart and your life, and to understand this, to grok it really, it takes time and patience, and you just have to keep at it. But what I'm trying to tell you right here is this is exactly how. Right? I'm so glad you got stuck on that chapter. I mean, not stuck or whatever. You asked questions about that chapter because it's a very profound and difficult chapter. Okay? And there will be times that the sutra does that. And then it'll ease up on you. Again, but I'm just describing it, right? So, But that's what makes it so valuable for the 21st century, because with the AIs, we're heading into territories where we damn well better know some ontology, right? And some epistemology, for that matter. And it's different than selling crackers or selling cars on the internet. Okay?
Yes.
Good. So keep going. Slow and steady does the trick. The level at which you're stopping to think, I think, is appropriate. But in all likelihood, this text will be, it's still with me, and it's not a text you've ultimately finished with. It's rewarding over and over again, because you begin to see other facets of the same truth. And you see them described differently. And so I understand why I'm enthusiastic about this text. So one final point. So as you get to Zen and you have the wind, which is a description, the mind, which is a description, the flag, which is a description, now you're getting to levels that transcend numerosity or verbal language, either mathematical or, I think it transcends mathematical language. It certainly transcends the language of words, right? And why wouldn't we expect that? I mean, some primate crawls out of the jungle or the forest, and creates some grunts and squeals that are cool, right? And some syntax and some meaning. But why should that be able to describe the ultimate nature of this cosmos? A priori, why would we expect it to?
I think from my point of view, communication as a tool was invented, or we discovered, so that two different members of that species can communicate or redirect to something same.
Okay. So it wasn't designed for ontology.
Yes, it was primarily designed for communication.
Right.
That's it.
Okay, all right. But we're evolving beyond that. Humanity is going to evolve beyond that.
When you pointed out the mind, you can only talk about it in the form of the word mind, but from my perspective, the mind is whatever I'm aware of.
Good.
Right now.
Good. So that's another descriptor of mind.
Again, yeah, and I'm saying that because I want to talk to you. And there's no other way to talk to you.
Fair. That's right.
But
this is your mind talking to you. As extraordinary as that may sound. Except the your part, I don't know about that. There's a lot more to it, and it just gets more and more glorious.
Yeah, in addition, I've been hearing that I'm this whole universe. I can't prove it, yet I can't disprove it as well. Because when you ask the question, where am I till?
Is the foundational of the foundational substrate of the universe, is it limited in this universe?
What do you mean by limited? What do you mean by
can you
limited?
put it in packages, and then outside the package there's non-universe?
But package itself is part of this universe.
Correct. And what about outside the package?
We don't know.
It's got to be the universe. What else could it be? Do you think there's bubbles of non-universe in the universe?
Again, these are just thoughts, and
okay,
I
good.
don't
Perfect,
know.
perfect. So I'll stop. But these are the kinds of queries that you need to spend time on. So you're doing fine. This is good. This is very good. Makes me happy, very happy. Keep going. Anything else before we stop?
No.
Okay.
No.
So God gave you a good mind. Do not waste it. And do not waste this precious human life. Okay? Do not waste it.
Yes.
It's much shorter than you realize because you're a young man. And you just don't want to waste it. It's the most precious thing there is. All right? Anything else before we stop?
Just a small thing, like all this I feel like is coming to getting to know what a thought is, what the reality of a thought is. Like even Krishnamurti was saying something like this: to be free of fear, to be free of time, is to know precisely what the nature of thought is and to know the falseness of it. And if I
Okay, that's Krishnamurti.
all this I feel, yeah.
Krishnamurti is a wonderful guy, and you know, I really like him a lot. But remember, he's just describing his way of looking at it, which is very independent, But remember, he I don't know. He skips over a lot of steps and expects for people to kind of understand that. So to be fear is that's a goal of every tradition there is, right? But how do you get there? And it requires understanding.
Yes.
And so just Krishnamurti is very demanding, and sometimes it's not easily obvious. He doesn't hold your hand in trying to get you from here to there.
I mean, I kind of get
God
it why
bless
he
him.
does that, because he's afraid that whatever he's speaking about will be conceptualized, and that's why he talks it the way he talks like that.
Okay, all right. If that's let's say that's true, so that puts him in the category of a Zen master, right?
Yeah.
And so that then we'd be looking at koans and hoping for a breakthrough, which is not the
Yes.
most, from my way of thinking, and I've been doing this a long time, it's not the most guaranteed way. Zen is not the most guaranteed way to get somebody to understanding. It can be for some people, but it usually takes quite a bit of preparation beforehand. But it looks like you're getting to that spot, and now some of the koans may start to make some sense for you, right? And just to master Zen is not the goal here. The goal is understanding, also
Yes.
knowledge and truth. Okay, sir. Adios. Vaya con Dios.
Yes.
And stay off the Reddit stuff, man. There's no yield. If there is, let me know.
Yes.
Ciao.
No, I don't think so.